There's a kind of man every woman remembers. Not because he said all the right things, not because he brought her flowers or whispered sweet nothings in her ear, but because being around him felt like an emotional roller coaster she didn't want to get off. One moment she felt safe, the next completely unsure, but she couldn't stop thinking about him. She hated how much she liked him. She didn't even understand why, but she felt it deeply, and it pulled her in like gravity. Most men think attraction is about looks, money, or having the perfect alpha routine. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Women don't get addicted to perfection. They get addicted to intensity, to contrast, to unpredictability, to psychological pressure that makes them feel something they haven't felt in years. And that's where most guys lose the game. They play it too safe. They try to impress. They try to be liked. And by doing so, they make themselves forgettable, replaceable, easy to ignore, because they don't understand that the female mind doesn't fall for logic. It falls for emotionally charged experience. But here's what the few who do get it have figured out. You don't need to be better than every other guy. You just need to make her feel what no one else dares to. Not through lies or fake charm, but through a deep understanding of how her emotional system works and how to stimulate it in ways that create obsession. This is psychological seduction, and it's not about manipulation in the shallow sense. It's about becoming a man who knows exactly how to push the buttons that awaken desire, curiosity, need, and even fear of loss, all while staying in full control. You don't chase, you don't beg. You trigger emotional loops that make her invest more and more until she needs you just to feel whole again. And the best part? She'll have no idea why she keeps coming back. All she knows is that she wants you. Badly. So if you're tired of being the guy who gets ghosted, ignored, or only wanted on her terms, this video is going to change the way you see the game forever. Because today, I'm going to reveal 6 psychological tricks, backed by real emotional patterns, dark psychology, and the same dynamics that professional seducers have used for decades that can make a woman emotionally dependent on you without ever needing to beg for her attention. And once you apply them, you won't just be remembered. You'll be unforgettable. The first psychological trigger is subtle, and yet it's one of the most powerful forces in human behavior: emotional uncertainty. And I'm not talking about being flaky or unreliable. That's weak. I'm talking about deliberately creating moments of ambiguity that make her question what you're feeling, what you're thinking, and where she stands with you. You see, one of the most addictive emotional states in the human brain is not pleasure, it's anticipation. That space between what we know and what we crave to find out. Psychologists call it intermittent reinforcement. Casino machines use it. Social media apps are built around it. And women, especially emotionally intelligent women, are deeply affected by it. When she doesn't know what's coming next, her brain stays active. Her emotions stay engaged. She becomes hypersensitive to your signals, analyzing your tone, your pauses, your silences. And that level of emotional investment, that's exactly what wires her deeper into you. If you always reply the same way, if you always show up exactly when she expects, she starts to categorize you. He's sweet. He's loyal. He's predictable. And once she has you figured out, the mystery dies. And when mystery dies, so does emotional tension. But when you leave just enough space, when you keep her guessing, when she feels like she's almost got you but never completely, she becomes invested in the outcome. She starts to think about you more, obsess more, replay your last conversation again and again, looking for clues. And in doing so, you begin to live inside her emotional world. This is why some men, even without being conventionally attractive or successful, have women obsessed with them. It's not looks, it's not lines, it's the psychological experience they create. They understand the power of emotional contrast. Warmth followed by coolness, attention followed by absence, presence followed by ambiguity. But here's the thing, you have to balance this with integrity. This isn't about being emotionally immature or passive-aggressive. It's about keeping the dynamic alive, rich, and unpredictable in a way that activates her feminine core. The feminine thrives on tension and release. The moment everything is flat and safe, she starts looking elsewhere for that spark. Now, the second psychological trick goes deeper into the realm of identity and emotion. It's called controlled emotional anchoring. Emotional anchoring comes from NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. and it refers to creating associations between certain feelings and specific triggers. In simple terms, if you can make her feel something powerful in your presence, especially something she rarely feels, her subconscious will start to link that feeling to you. And that's the real key. You're not trying to impress her, you're becoming her emotional trigger. Let me explain how this works in practice. Imagine you're with her during a moment of high emotional intensity. Maybe she's telling you a vulnerable story, or she's laughing harder than she has in weeks, or she's experiencing something exciting and new. Now, if you remain present, grounded, calm, but also just emotionally attuned enough to amplify the moment, you're no longer just a man in the room. You're the man who was with her in that unforgettable moment. And because the brain links emotions to people and places, she starts to associate you with those powerful emotions. She won't even be aware it's happening. But suddenly, your voice calms her. Your texts excite her. Your silence makes her wonder. And that's when dependency begins, not because you asked for it, but because you became her anchor to an emotional state she craves. Here's the secret most men never figure out. It's not about being everything to her. It's about being one thing to her that no one else is. The man who made her laugh when she was stressed. The man who made her feel desired without touching her. The man who looked into her eyes and said nothing, but made her feel more seen than 1,000 compliments ever could. You're not trying to replace all her emotional experiences. You're aiming to dominate just one of them, to become the source of a specific emotional high that she links with you and you alone. This is why men who understand emotional anchoring don't need to chase. They don't even need to text constantly. Because the woman's mind will do the chasing for them. She'll replay the feeling. She'll long for it. She'll check her phone, not because she wants conversation, but because she wants the feeling she gets when it's you. But you must be intentional. This isn't about random acts of kindness or rehearsed lines. It's about being aware of emotional peaks when they happen, and being fully present in them. Not distracted, not trying to impress. Just owning the moment so fully, so confidently, that her body literally registers, this moment, him. And once that emotional link is set, every time she craves that feeling again, comfort, safety, excitement, validation, her nervous system will pull her back to you. That's not romance, that's pure neurological conditioning. Now combine both these techniques, emotional uncertainty and controlled anchoring. One creates tension, the other creates relief. Together, they form a loop, a psychological cycle of craving and satisfaction. And when she starts running that loop in her mind, you're not just a man anymore. You're an emotional experience. And trust me, no woman forgets the man who becomes her favorite feeling. There's a moment in every interaction where the energy either escalates or dies. Most men miss it. They talk, they flirt, they connect, and then they plateau. They think the conversation went well, but the emotional charge slowly fades. She stops replying. She becomes busy. She says she's not ready for anything serious. But what really happened is simple. He never created a void. This brings us to the third psychological trigger, the emotional void principle. The emotional void isn't about physical distance. It's about removing your emotional presence after you've made her feel something deep. You give her a taste of intensity, then pull back just enough for her to feel the absence of it. That contrast creates craving. Picture this. You have a powerful night together. There's laughter, connection, maybe even vulnerability. Then, the next day, instead of bombarding her with messages or validating the night with endless texts, you go quiet. Not cold, not distant, just still. You let the memory do the work. And what happens? Her mind starts spinning. She replays your words. She wonders what you're thinking. She doubts herself. Not because you made her feel insecure, but because you created a high and then took it away. That void is what she wants to fill. That void becomes a psychological hunger. Robert Greene talks about this in The Art of Seduction. He says, absence increases respect and honor. It keeps people in suspense, and they return to you. The brain craves closure. When you give her intensity and disappear, without explanation, without apology, you become the unfinished story. And people don't forget unfinished stories. But here's the key. The void only works after an emotional high. If you pull back too early, she forgets you. If you stay too long, she takes you for granted. But if you withdraw right after sparking emotion, especially deep emotion, she starts needing your presence to feel whole again. That's not manipulation. That's mastery. Now let's go deeper, because it's not just about the emotions you create, it's about the identity she builds around those emotions. And that leads us to the fourth psychological trigger, selective vulnerability. This is one of the most misunderstood aspects of male-female dynamics. Weak men overshare and call it being open. Cold men hide everything and think it makes them mysterious. But the seductive man, the emotionally magnetic man, chooses when and how to be vulnerable. And he does it with intention. Here's what most guys never realize. A woman doesn't fall in love with your perfect image. She falls in love with the version of you she feels chosen by. When you let her see a rare crack in your armor, not weakness, but a controlled moment of truth, you give her something no one else gets: access. And that access becomes emotional privilege. Let's break this down. Say you're usually confident, composed, grounded, but in one rare moment, you tell her about a time you doubted yourself. A failure, a painful lesson. You don't do it for pity. You don't look for validation. You share it from a place of strength, as a man who's already overcome it. That one moment? It changes everything, because now to her, you're not just attractive, you're real. But only she got to see it. And that exclusivity builds emotional investment. She feels closer, more special, more essential to your life. Not because you said she was, but because she experienced it. This is why selective vulnerability is so powerful. It turns intimacy into a secret, and secrets bond people. The human brain links secrecy to closeness. That's why shared secrets between two people create intimacy faster than months of surface-level conversation. And when she feels like she knows something about you that no one else does, she clings to it, because it makes her part of your inner world. But again, timing is everything. If you open up too fast, you look unstable. If you never open up at all, you look unreachable. The magic happens in the contrast: strength, dominance, confidence. And then, when she least expects it, a glimpse of the man behind the mask. That dynamic, that contrast, it's unforgettable. Women are deeply intuitive. They can smell fake vulnerability from a mile away. But when it's real, when it's subtle, not dramatized, it hits differently. She feels it in her chest. And more importantly, she wants more of it, because it wasn't demanded. It was offered. And what's offered freely from a powerful man becomes priceless. Now imagine combining that with the emotional void principle. You give her a rare glimpse into your world. She feels special, seen, chosen. And then you pull back. Gently. Not out of manipulation, but because you have your own path, your own mission, your own gravity. She doesn't just miss you, she misses the feeling of mattering to you. She questions why you shared that moment. She wants another one. And in her mind, the only way to get it is by staying close to you. That's not just attraction anymore. That's emotional dependency. Most men beg for attention. They chase. They overshare. They try to force connection. And in doing so, they smother the very tension that builds desire. But when you create contrast, mystery and intimacy, presence and absence, strength and softness, you tap into something ancient inside her, a need that goes deeper than logic or surface attraction. You become not just a man she likes, but a man she can't explain, a man she dreams about, craves, fears losing. And once she's there, once that emotional bond is set, she'll stay. Not because you asked her to, but because you became the only thing that quiets a storm she didn't even know she had inside her. There's something that happens to a woman when she starts associating your presence with a higher version of herself. She doesn't just like you, she needs you. Because every time she's around you, she feels more alive, more beautiful, more feminine, more valuable. Not because you tell her she is, but because something about you activates it inside her. That's the secret that leads us to the fifth psychological trigger: identity reflection. Identity reflection is the ability to subtly hold up a mirror to a woman that reflects not who she is, but who she wants to be. It's what powerful seducers have always done. Not by flattery, but by selectively reinforcing the parts of her that she's most proud of, or the parts she deeply wishes someone would finally see. Most men try to validate a woman by being obvious. You're beautiful. You're different from other girls. You're so smart. These are compliments she's heard 100 times. They slide off her skin like water, They might get a smile, but they don't get into her bloodstream. But the seductive man sees beneath the surface. He observes what drives her, what part of her she hides, what emotional reward she's chasing in the way she speaks, dresses, or behaves. Then he reflects that truth back to her, calmly, simply, and in a way that lands with emotional precision. For example, she tells you about some chaotic relationship in her past. Most men would say, "Wow, that guy was crazy," or "You deserve better." But you? You look at her and say, "I can tell you're the kind of woman who doesn't tolerate surface-level connection anymore." That lands differently. Why? Because it shows you don't just hear her, you see her evolution. You affirm her emotional intelligence, her growth, her desire for something real. And suddenly, you're not just another guy giving attention. You're the man who speaks directly to her inner narrative. And here's the power of this dynamic. When a woman feels like you see the version of her she wants to become, she will cling to you, because your presence now serves as proof of her transformation. Being around you affirms her self-worth. Her identity becomes entangled with the way you see her, and losing you would feel like losing a part of herself. This is where emotional dependency becomes almost spiritual. It's not about your status or your looks anymore. It's about the emotional role you play in her personal story. You become a symbol, a reflection of who she believes she's growing into. But this only works if it's authentic. You must be genuinely perceptive. You have to notice details other men overlook. The way she lowers her voice when she's nervous. The subtle excitement in her eyes when she talks about her dreams. The hesitation in her smile when she doubts herself. These aren't things she'll tell you. You have to see them and speak to them with precision. That's what makes you unforgettable. Now we arrive at the sixth and final psychological trigger, and it's perhaps the most underrated of all, the controlled sense of emotional danger. Most men believe that in order to make a woman feel safe, they have to be predictable, agreeable, and completely non-threatening. And yes, emotional safety is essential for any real connection. But too much safety with no edge becomes boring, flat, sterile. What few men understand is that emotional dependency is often built not on comfort, but on risk. On that subtle fear of loss. On the thrill of the unknown. On the question, what if I lose him? Now let's be clear. We're not talking about being emotionally volatile or manipulative. That's weak and childish. What we're talking about is creating a sense of stakes. A woman must feel on some level that keeping your attention is not guaranteed, that your presence is valuable, that you choose her, not out of need, but out of selective desire. And the way you do this is not by being rude or aloof, but by living in alignment with your standards. You make it clear, through your actions, not your words, that you won't tolerate disrespect, that you don't chase validation, that you're not afraid to walk away from anything that doesn't nourish your energy, and that, at any moment, if she crosses a certain line, you will disappear. Not to punish her, but because your self-respect demands it. That emotional tension, the knowledge that you are both deeply present and yet fully capable of walking away, creates a magnetic polarity. It triggers in her what psychologists call investment escalation. The more she senses she could lose you, the more she invests in keeping you. Not through fear, but through urgency, through desire, through the realization that you are not hers by default. And when you combine this controlled danger with emotional intimacy, anchoring, and reflection, you become an experience that's impossible to replicate. She can't just go find another man like you, because it's not about what you do. It's about how you make her feel, and no one else makes her feel like you do. This is where seduction becomes psychological art. You're no longer operating on the level of attraction. You're operating on the level of imprint. You imprint your presence into her nervous system, your tone, your silences, your gaze, the way you made her feel when she doubted herself, and the way you vanished just long enough for her to realize how much she needed your presence. And the more she feels that tension, the high followed by absence, the connection followed by uncertainty, the intimacy followed by mystery, the more her mind becomes fixated. She starts creating justifications. She begins to mold her own behavior to stay close. She starts chasing your validation, not because you asked her to, but because her emotions are addicted to the ride you created. So now you understand. Emotional dependency isn't an accident. It's not about luck. And it's definitely not about chasing or proving yourself. It's about understanding how the emotional system of a woman works, what keeps her craving, what makes her invest, what makes her stay when everyone else fades away. You're not here to be liked, you're here to be remembered, to become the man who doesn't just pass through her life, but leaves fingerprints on her mind, on her emotions, on her identity. The man who triggers something inside her that she didn't even know was there. The one who shows her who she could be, but only when she's around you. Because let's be honest, most men will never understand this. They'll keep sending flowers, writing long texts, posting stories hoping she'll notice, begging for scraps of attention. And they'll never realize that women don't become obsessed with effort. They become obsessed with impact. And now you have the tools. You have the leverage. The 6 psychological dynamics that don't just attract, but bind. That create memory, tension, craving, intensity. Things she'll never get from any other man. If this content just opened your eyes or confirmed what you've always felt deep down, then don't keep it to yourself. Drop a comment below and tell me which psychological trigger hit hardest for you, which one you've used, or which one you've felt used on you. Your story might wake up another man who's still playing blind, and if you want to master this at another level, if you want to keep learning the dark psychology, the emotional mechanics, and the mindset of a man who doesn't chase but becomes the prize, then make sure you hit that like button so this video reaches more men like you. Subscribe if you haven't yet, and most importantly, share this with someone who needs to stop being the nice guy and start becoming unforgettable. Because this isn't just seduction, this is strategy, this is psychology, this is power, and you were born to use it.